Rain fell hard against the cracked windows of the corner store, washing the neon flicker into puddles on the asphalt like melted paint. Tamika's hands trembled as she counted her coins, the rustle of the pennies echoing in the empty shop. She was late for work, late for everything, late in life it seemed, but she forced a smile when she saw him sitting on the worn bench outside, hood pulled low, eyes scanning the street like he was part of some silent orchestra only he could hear. "Hey, you want something to eat?" she asked, her voice soft, carrying the weight of exhaustion and hope in equal measure. He looked up slowly, a shadow of a smile ghosting his lips, and nodded. Tamika dug through the loose change, feeling it scrape against her fingers like tiny judgments, and handed him a $1 sandwich from the bottom shelf, wrapped in wax paper, edges frayed. He took it carefully, like it was a treasure, and muttered a quiet thank you, his voice rich with something she couldn't name. She shrugged, already turning back to the bell above the door as a gust of wind pressed itself through the cracks. He sat there as the rain soaked through his jacket, the bread in his hand trembling like it was holding all the warmth in the world. Tamika lingered on the threshold, feeling guilty for not giving more, for always feeling like she was never enough. "You know," he said, voice low, "most people don't care enough to even ask." She froze, because his eyes met hers in a way that scraped her soul bare, and she realized she had not expected kindness to feel so heavy. "I do what I can," she said, shrugging like it was nothing, but inside, a fire stirred. She watched him eat slowly, deliberately, like every bite was a negotiation with the world. Days passed, each one heavier than the last. Tamika started seeing him around the corner, sometimes reading a tattered notebook, sometimes watching the cars roll by with the patience of someone who had nowhere urgent to be. He never spoke much, but his presence became a strange comfort, like the first rain after a long drought. One evening, she found herself walking with him to the bus stop, talking about nothing and everything, the kind of conversation that leaves you full even when your stomach is empty. "You ever think about how people judge without knowing?" he asked, tossing a pebble into a puddle. "Every day," she said, biting back the bitterness. "Sometimes, I wonder if they'd treat me different if they knew my story." He laughed softly, the sound almost musical, and Tamika realized she had started waiting for him, like a beat in a song she hadn't heard before. Then came the day when the world she thought she knew cracked open. She caught him on the corner, talking to men in crisp suits, shaking hands with a confidence that felt alien. His hood was gone, and the rain highlighted a tailored coat and polished shoes that didn't belong to the man she had given a $1 sandwich to. Her heart thudded like it was being squeezed. You're," she stammered. He smiled, not with mockery, but with the gentleness of someone who had been carrying secrets too heavy for one person. "I am," he said simply, "but I was here first. I was that boy on the bench once." The words hit her chest with the force of realization. Wealth, privilege, the world's applause. It hadn't erased his need for human kindness. Tamika found herself questioning everything she had assumed about people, about herself. She had given him a sandwich without expecting anything, and in that small act, she had unwittingly touched a life larger than the city streets she walked every day. He spoke about injustice quietly, about giving back in ways that weren't always seen, ways that hurt no one but healed much. He told stories of men in suits who thought power was the only language that mattered, of boardrooms where they laughed at those who struggled to feed their children. And Tamika listened, silent and stunned, her heart aching with the simplicity and complexity of morality entwined. One evening, as the sky bled orange into purple, he took her to the edge of the city, to a park where the fountains had long since dried. "I want to show you something," he said, and from his coat, he pulled a thick envelope, stamped with an address that could change a lifetime. "It's not charity," he said. "It's opportunity, but only if you choose it." Tamika's hands shook as she took it, a mixture of fear and disbelief grounding her. "Why me?" she whispered. He shrugged, looking at the horizon where the buildings reflected the last light of day. "Because you saw me. That's rare. That's everything." And in that moment, She understood that justice wasn't about punishment or reward. It was about recognition, about seeing the humanity in someone who the world had written off. The night came down like a curtain, and Tamika walked home slowly, the envelope clutched against her chest. She thought about her mother, about the long hours, about the bills she couldn't pay, about the pride that refused to bend even when the world had beaten it raw. She thought about him, about the hidden life behind tired eyes, and she realized that humility could be more powerful than any gold or diamond. That small act, a sandwich, a smile, had threaded her life to his in ways that felt both terrifying and divine. As she reached her apartment, her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number read, "Meet me tomorrow. The choice is yours." But no, someone is watching. Her stomach dropped. She looked out her window into the black city, lights flickering like distant stars. The rain had returned, heavier this time, drumming against the metal awnings and puddles like a warning. She clutched the envelope tighter, realizing that morality had a cost, kindness had stakes, and the world had eyes in places she couldn't imagine. She didn't sleep that night. She thought about every coin she had counted, every sandwich given, every step she had taken believing small deeds didn't matter. And now, as dawn bled gray over the horizon, she understood that the act of giving had set a chain of events into motion, one that could save lives or destroy them. She heard footsteps outside her door and froze. The envelope felt heavier than ever. Her heart pounded. The world had suddenly become a stage where every choice mattered. Every glance was a signal, and she was only at the opening scene. And then she saw him, standing in the hallway, face shadowed, coat dripping rain, eyes sharp. "It's time," he said, voice calm, but beneath it, a tremor that made her blood run cold. She swallowed, realizing the truth. Nothing is ever simple. Kindness never goes unnoticed, and justice waits in the most unexpected forms. She opened her mouth to speak, but the words failed. The city held its breath. Somewhere, a siren wailed, faint but insistent, and in that moment, Tamika understood that her life was no longer just hers. It had become a story with a sequel yet to be written, one that would demand courage, truth, and the kind of moral reckoning only life itself could script. The hallway felt impossibly long, shadows pooling at the corners like waiting predators. Tamika's hands gripped the envelope so tight it crinkled, the paper trembling like her own pulse. He stepped closer, each footfall precise, deliberate, a rhythm that somehow matched the pounding in her chest. "You have to decide now," he said, voice low, almost a whisper, yet it carried weight like a verdict. "This isn't just about you. Not anymore." She opened her mouth, but the words lodged in her throat. Fear, awe, and disbelief tangled like barbed wire. Outside, the rain had stopped, leaving the city slick and silent, the neon lights reflecting in puddles like fractured glass. She wanted to run, to slam the door and pretend none of this had happened, but some invisible tether kept her rooted. He handed her a card, black with gold lettering, smooth and cold. "It's an invitation," he said. "But more than that, it's a test. You'll see things you can't unsee, make choices you may regret, but you'll also see truth." Tamika turned it over in her hands, reading and rereading the embossed words. A name, an address, a single line she couldn't fully understand yet. "The world watches what you do in the dark." She looked up to ask him what it meant, but he had already stepped back, his hood rising again, swallowing him in shadow. "I'll see you tomorrow," he said, and just like that, he was gone, leaving only the faint scent of rain and polished leather, and the echo of a life that felt suddenly both larger and more fragile than her own. Tamika sank to the floor, heart hammering, the envelope now cold and heavy against her chest. Questions raced. Why her? Why now? Who was watching? Every memory of the dollar sandwich, every small act of kindness she'd ever given, seemed suddenly monumental, like pieces in a puzzle she wasn't ready to see. Her phone buzzed again. She hesitated, then picked it up. A new message, no number, just words. "Do not trust what you see tomorrow. Some smiles hide knives. Some doors lead only to shadows." The city outside hummed softly, indifferent, lights flickering as if breathing. She felt both ready and completely unprepared. The envelope, the card, the message, they all whispered the same thing. The world had shifted, and she was at the center of a story that had already begun without her knowing. She imagined him walking through rain-soaked streets, now revealed as something more than the boy on the bench, and wondered how many layers of truth the city concealed, waiting for someone brave or foolish enough to uncover them. She spent the night pacing, imagining the next day, the unknown waiting behind a door, the possibility of loss, of revelation, of justice, of betrayal. And just as dawn cracked the sky pink and gold, she heard it. A single knock at her door, slow, deliberate, not the casual tap of a visitor, but the kind of knock that carried purpose, demand, inevitability. Her pulse skipped. She edged closer, peering through the peephole, and froze. The hallway was empty. No one. And then, just as she let out a shaky breath, the card in her hand vibrated like a heartbeat. A new message appeared on her phone. You're not alone, but not everyone is who they seem. Choose wisely. Her fingers trembled, the envelope crumpling in her grasp, as the faint sound of footsteps echoed somewhere inside the building. Above, below, or behind the walls themselves. Tamika's heart pounded, and the shadows in the corners of her apartment seemed to lean closer, waiting. She realized with a cold thrill that her life had become a story where every move mattered. Every choice could tip the balance, and the line between friend and foe was thinner than the paper she clutched. Outside, the city stirred. Somewhere, unseen, someone was watching. And somewhere, a door was about to open that she wasn't sure she was ready to step through. Tamika's fingers hovered over the doorknob, sweat cold against her palms. The hallway was silent again, almost unnaturally so, like the city itself had paused to watch her next move. Her phone buzzed once more. She glanced down. A video message. No sender, just a black screen with a single line of text. He is closer than you think. Her breath caught. The footsteps returned. Faster this time, echoing, not around her, but somehow beneath her. The building creaked, each groan of the floorboards amplifying her fear. She wanted to run, slam the door, hide somewhere no one could find her. But some invisible gravity pulled her forward, towards the unknown waiting behind the cracked wooden door. The envelope trembled in her lap, as if alive, whispering that everything she had done, the kindness, the choices, the small acts that seemed meaningless, had led here. She lifted the knob, and the door clicked softly, swinging open to reveal nothing. Just the dimly lit hallway, the shadows stretching long and still. Her heart slowed just enough for a moment of false relief. And then, from the corner, a voice. Soft, smooth, unmistakable. Tamika. Her name rolled out like a velvet blade. She turned sharply, but the hallway was empty. Her pulse rattled in her ears. Her phone buzzed again. Another message, a live feed. Her own apartment appeared on the screen, Tamika frozen in the center, the envelope still clutched in her hands. And then, another figure appeared behind her in the video. She whipped around. Nothing. Just her own reflection in the darkened window. But the screen didn't lie. Someone or something was watching her right now, closer than she could see, closer than she could imagine. Tamika's mind raced, thinking of the man from the bench, the billionaire hidden beneath rags, the promises of opportunity, the warnings in every message, the moral weight of her life, the acts of kindness that had seemed small, now pressed on her chest like a stone. And she understood. This was no longer just about her. Someone else had entered the story, someone patient, cunning, and silent, someone who had been tracking her every move. Her apartment door rattled suddenly, a sharp, forceful knock that made her jump back. The envelope slipped, falling to the floor with a muted thud. Her heart slammed as the knock repeated, faster now, almost impatient. She whispered to herself, "Who is it?" Her voice trembled, swallowed almost immediately by the oppressive silence that returned. Then her phone buzzed one last time. A message, short, chilling. "Do you want to know the truth? Or do you want to survive?" Tamika froze, staring at the door, at the shadows, at the city beyond her window that no longer felt familiar. Somewhere outside or maybe inside, her life was about to change in ways she could not yet see, in ways she might not survive. And then she heard it. The softest click, almost imperceptible, of a lock turning somewhere she hadn't unlocked. She reached for the doorknob again, hand shaking. The air was thick with anticipation, fear, and the promise of revelation. And as she hesitated, the faint sound of a whisper carried through the cracks of the walls. "It begins now." Tamika's hand froze on the doorknob. The whisper lingered, curling around her like smoke, impossible to shake. She told herself it was fear, imagination, the city's shadows playing tricks, but deep in her chest, something told her it was real. The lock clicked again, slower this time, deliberate, like it was savoring her hesitation. She pulled the door open, and the hallway beyond stretched unnaturally long, darker than it should have been, like a wound in the world. Her heart thumped in her throat. A figure stepped forward from the shadows, tall, perfectly composed, face still hidden beneath a hood. Not the man she had met, the billionaire, but someone else. Someone patient. Someone who had been watching from the edges of her life, moving silently through the spaces between her choices. Tamika swallowed. "Who are you?" Her voice sounded small in the vast emptiness. The figure tilted its head. "Someone who knows what you've done," it said softly. "Someone who knows what you are capable of." The words were precise, measured, and they cut through her like a scalpel. "Every kindness, every choice, it matters. You've set things in motion you don't understand." Tamika's eyes darted to the envelope on the floor, the card in her hand, the phone now silent but still heavy with warning. She understood that her life, the life she thought she had known, had been a prelude. Every act of compassion had been noticed, catalogued, and now weighed against her in ways she couldn't predict. The figure stepped closer, and the light from the window caught just enough of its face to make her blood run cold. Not a mask, not a disguise, something more deliberate, almost surgical. "He," the figure said, voice low, "was testing you. But I—" A slow smile, cruel and knowing, crept across the face. "I am the consequence." Tamika's pulse raced. She tried to step back, but the hallway seemed to stretch, to warp, trapping her in the moment. Fear twisted into clarity. This wasn't random. This wasn't coincidence. Every choice, every dollar sandwich, every act of unnoticed humanity had led her here, and now she faced the reckoning for it. The figure extended a hand, not to help, but to demand. "Will you act when it matters? Or will you let the world bend you under its weight?" Her mind screamed, fighting the gravity of the question, but instinct pushed her forward. She snatched the envelope from the floor, feeling its weight. Not just paper and opportunity, but responsibility, justice, the sum of all the small, unseen acts she had made. I'll do it," she said, voice shaking but steadying. "I'll do whatever it takes." The figure's smile widened, and then, as if acknowledging a truth she hadn't yet grasped, it stepped back into the shadows. "Then follow. But know this, every step will test you, and not everyone following you is on your side." Tamika swallowed hard. The envelope pressed to her chest, her fingers curling around the card, and she stepped into the hallway. Every creak, every shadow, every flicker of light felt alive, as if the building itself was watching, waiting. And in the silence, she could almost hear it, the faintest heartbeat, steady and insistent, as though the city itself held its breath for what came next. She turned the corner, and the door behind her closed with a soft click. Not locked, not trapped, but final. And then, in the quiet, a single voice echoed from the darkness ahead. "The world is ready to see who you truly are." Tamika took a step forward, and the light swallowed her whole. Tamika's steps echoed down the empty corridor, each one heavier than the last, weighted with fear, anticipation, and the strange exhilaration of purpose. The envelope pressed to her chest was no longer just paper. It was a summons, a reckoning, a map to a world she had only glimpsed through fragments of kindness and curiosity. Shadows stretched along the walls, but she walked without faltering, each heartbeat a drum, each breath a promise. Somewhere ahead, a door waited, a portal to answers she both longed for and feared. When she reached it, the figure she had glimpsed before stepped forward again, no longer hidden entirely, no longer a phantom. Its face was calm, almost human, but with eyes sharp and unyielding, the kind of eyes that see not just what you do but what you could do. "Tamika," it said, voice low and deliberate. "You've been tested. Every act, every choice, it has led you here. But the final truth is not about what you've given. It's about what you will do when the world demands it." Tamika swallowed. The envelope slipped slightly in her grip, revealing the card inside. She had memorized the address, the single line that had haunted her. "The world watches what you do in the dark." And now she understood this was no longer metaphor. Someone, something had watched her, measured her, and now the world itself expected her to act. She looked up at the figure. "What is this? What do I have to do?" The figure's lips curved in a faint, almost approving smile. "You've already begun, but you must step beyond what you know, beyond fear, beyond doubt. You must choose not just to act for yourself, but for those who cannot, for those who are unseen, for the system that will not notice unless someone bends it, breaks it, reshapes it with courage and truth." Her heart thundered in her chest. She had always thought of kindness as small, quiet, almost invisible, and now she saw it differently. Every small act, every unnoticed mercy, had been a thread, weaving her into something larger than her own life. She understood in a sudden flash that morality was not a private thing. It was a force, and she was being called to wield it. A door at the end of the hall clicked open, spilling golden light into the shadows. Beyond it, the city stretched in panorama, alive and unaware, teeming with people oblivious to the invisible currents shaping their lives. "Step through," the figure said. "See the world as it is. Then decide what it will become. And remember, those who watch will not forgive hesitation." Tamika felt the envelope grow heavy in her hands, as if the weight of lives, choices, and consequences had condensed into it. Her fingers curled around it, determination hardening in her chest. She took a slow, deliberate step forward, and then another. The light wrapped around her, warm but blinding, and for the first time, she felt the magnitude of what she carried. Not wealth, not power, but responsibility. The raw and unyielding moral imperative to act, to see, to be brave in a world that often refused justice. The figure remained behind, fading into the shadows. Its voice followed her, soft but certain. "Remember, Tamika, even the smallest act of courage can ignite change, but only if you do not falter." Tamika stepped fully into the light, and the door behind her closed with a resolute click. Silence fell for a heartbeat, and then the city exhaled in rain, wind, and the hum of life continuing unaware. She lifted her head, and in that moment, she realized she had crossed the threshold. She was no longer simply a girl giving sandwiches to strangers. She was a witness, a force, a participant in a moral reckoning far larger than herself. The envelope throbbed in her hands, a heartbeat synchronized with her own. She opened it fully and read the contents. Blueprints, names, addresses, and a single, simple instruction: begin. And Tamika, trembling but unbroken, understood finally that the story, the one she had lived, the one she had been thrust into, the one that had tested her every instinct, was not hers alone. It belonged to everyone who had been unseen, unheard, underestimated, forgotten. And with that realization, she stepped forward, ready to act, ready to shape justice in a world that had almost forgotten what it meant. The storm broke in earnest, rain cascading over rooftops and streets like a cleansing. And in that storm, Tamika disappeared into the narrative she was born to live, a story of courage, consequence, and quiet power, leaving only the echo of a single, undeniable truth behind. Even one small act of recognition could change everything. As Tamika stepped into the storm, ready to shape justice in ways the world had never seen, one question lingered in the air. If you were given the power to change one hidden injustice in the world, what would you do? Comment below and share your answer. And for more powerful stories that challenge the heart and mind, turn on the notification bell and subscribe to the channel, because every story has a ripple, and yours could be next.